Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest. Fred Armisen.
Fritz Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast. Ow!
What's up? What is up? This is Elia Einhorn here in Brooklyn, and joining me from Chicago,
Josh Modell. What's up, Elia?
Hey, man. We have an amazing Talkhouse Podcast episode for you this week. Listeners, Brian Wilson and the Zombies are touring together. I repeat, head Beach Boy Brian Wilson and recent Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, the Zombies, are touring America together right now. And guess what? Did you guess? Did you guess it? We are so truly, truly pleased to have them in exclusive conversation together right here on today's show.
It's an all-star cast this week. The Zombies songwriter and keyboardist Rod Argent and singer Colin Blunstone, along with Brian Wilson, fellow Beach Boys founder and rhythm guitarist and harmony singer Al Jardine, 1970s Beach Boys edition on guitar and vocals Blondie Chaplin,
who also has played with the Stones for 15 years.
Insane resume. And Darian Sahanaja, who's played with Brian for 2 decades and who was key in the making of the fantastic LP Smile way back in 2004. Funnily enough, Darian has also toured as a member of the Zombies.
This guy has serious chops. Now, the Zombies formed back in 1962 in St. Albans. That's not too far north of London. Their breakout came a couple years later with the single She's Not There, and then 65's Tell Her No and the 1968 smash hit Time of the Season from the album Odyssey and Oracle cemented their status in the timeless pantheon of musical greats. Now, Josh, I realize that my hyperbole has reached new heights, and yet it is completely justified here.
We have a conversation with the guy who made Pet Sounds, one of the greatest albums of all time.
Yes, sir.
And the guys who made Odyssey and Oracle, one of the greatest albums of all time. It makes sense that you're a little excited.
Let's take a moment to play what is a lot of people's favorite track from Odyssey and Oracle. Here's a clip of Time of the Season.
Before we hear this song, Elliot, let me ask you 3 quick questions.
Okay, I'm here for it.
What's your name? Who's your daddy? Is he rich like me? This is the greatest lyrics of all time right there.
Oh, man.
You can't beat that.
What's your name? What's your name? Who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy? Here
Is he rich like me? Has he taken any time
to
show you what you need to live? Tell it to me slowly. Tell you why I really want to know. It's that time.
I love that track so much. You know what's funny, Josh? I first heard it when Belle and Sebastian covered it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, isn't it? I was a latecomer to the Zombies, not just because of my age.
I was going to say, you weren't born yet when that song was a hit. So,
but you know who I've been into since I was 8 years old? The Beach Boys.
I believe it. I mean, the Beach Boys' early hits are sort of accessible to anyone. And then, of course, as you get older, you can get more into the nuance of what was happening. They are truly like a huge pop band. They've sold 100 million records, but they're also musicians. And they're certainly one of the most influential and legendary groups of all time. The Beach Boys got together about a year before the Zombies in 1961, but across the pond in Hawthorne, California, just outside Los Angeles. The string of hits that followed includes Surfin' USA, California Girls, God Only Knows, Good Vibrations, Help Me Rhonda, Don't Worry Baby, and literally dozens more.
We could take the rest of the show just naming their hits.
Let's do that for an hour.
Let's do that, just as an exercise. Now, Brian's gone on to release some incredible solo records, including the aforementioned Brian Wilson Presents Smile. That's a studio version of the Lost Beach Boys album. From that LP, let's check out Heroes and Villains.
I've been in this town so long to the city. I'm fit with the stuff to ride in the rough, and sunny down Snuff I'm alright. By the heroes and villains, just see what you.
Josh, I got to see Brian Wilson and Darian Sahanaja speak about the making of Smile in 2005 at South by Southwest. And I learned something that my fellow hardcore Brian Wilson fans may already know by now. These days, Brian is a man of very few words. They're powerful, they're insightful, there just aren't many of them.
Hey, with a guy like this who has released so many genius records, you take what you can get.
Amen. Now, the Brian Wilson and Zombies tour kicked off on August 31st in Las Vegas at the Joint at Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. That's where we recorded this conversation between the two act sound checks. Brian and the guys literally walked off stage into the room to talk with the Zombies, and the Zombies literally walked out of the room on stage to sound check.
On this tour, Brian is concentrating on tracks from a couple of kind of weird outlier Beach Boys records, 1968's Friends and 1971's Surf's Up, an environmentally conscious record, which is kind of perfect for right now.
Yeah.
He's going to play some rarities and, of course, a lot of Beach Boys classics. You're going to hear all the hits and then some great cool stuff.
Yeah, I got to catch Brian touring Pet Sounds. I saw him at Primavera in Barcelona and at Pitchfork in Chicago. Amazing, amazing shows. Truly special.
The Zombies are going to give the people what they want, playing Odyssey and Oracle in its entirety.
Boom!
And some great new songs.
Yeah, including one that Colin mentions they just finished last week.
Still kicking.
The guys get into a lot here. We hear about the early days of both the Beach Boys and the Zombies and their deep love of each other's music.
We also hear a kind of a bittersweet story about founding Zombies guitarist Paul Atkinson, who left the band to work on the label side with acts like Elton John, ABBA, and the Beach Boys.
It was fun to learn about the challenges in playing songs you haven't played for 50 years.
Yeah, and the recording of the Friends album, which was done in Brian's living room.
Amazing.
Which he lets us know, or in this conversation talks about how that was not his favorite way to record, just chilling at home.
The guys also get into how Brian's work with the legendary Wrecking Crew and his Pet Sounds record inspired Odyssey and Oracle, about the Surf's Up album's legacy, and, quote, balls out Hammond B3 organ.
And a quick note before we roll tape on this talk is followed by some of our favorite moments of Brian Wilson and the Zombies on the Talkhouse podcast from back in 2016. We hear a one-question wonder in which Carly Rae Jepsen asks Brian a question backstage at Pitchfork Music Fest, where they both performed, and then the Zombies in conversation with their friends Hollis Brown, a chat that went down live at the flagship Samsung store in Manhattan's Meatpacking District.
Yep, those are both fantastic moments from the archives. And now let's roll a little Beach Boys and Zombies in convo. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Blondie Chaplin.
Hi, Rod Argent here from the Zombies.
Jardine from the Beach Zombies.
There you go.
It's Colin Blunstone here from the Zombies.
Brian Wilson.
Well, the tour hasn't started yet, but this is our first night tonight, and we're just, speaking on behalf of the Zombies, we're just really, really thrilled to be playing with Brian and the guys. So we're really excited about it. It's going to be a wonderful adventure for us. And tonight is the first night, so...
Yeah. Are you nervous?
It should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. You know.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
I'm looking forward.
I wasn't going to admit it, but if you admit it, I'll admit it.
I'm a little nervous, yeah.
Yeah.
Playing songs we haven't done for 50 years.
Oh, well,
we
are playing one or two.
We're playing one song that was only written about a week ago.
Yeah.
So it's a
There you go.
different...
That's fresh. That's fresh. That's good.
Yeah. That's why
great.
we need the sound chat today. Absolutely. Yeah. But, I mean, Darian's used to playing with this, aren't you, Darian?
I am, and I'm so looking forward to playing with you guys again. I'm Darian Sahanaja, by the way. I play the keyboardist and singer in the Brian Wilson band for how many years, Brian?
20.
20 years.
Wow.
20 wonderful years. And I'm so grateful to be playing Brian's music. And then I was so touched when I was asked to sit in with the Zombies as well for their Odyssey and Oracle performances that started about 10 years ago.
I guess they did, Darian.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't do it with anybody else because it was fantastic. Because, Darian, you met us, I think, about 2004.
Maybe.
We played the Key Club.
Yeah.
And you were there. And you started playing A Rose for Emily, which was a song I'd written on Odyssey and Oracle. And I said, hey, what are you doing? And you said, oh, well, you know, we're big fans. And I realised that when we started to play Odyssey and Oracle, we would only do it if we could reproduce every single note on the original album, because we didn't want to do it otherwise with the original guys, you know. And you were the guy that did all the mellotron parts that I'd originally played, and you got it note perfect.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. And honestly, I don't think we would do it without Darian.
Well, there were interesting times when Darian was saying to Rod, no, that's not what you played. This is what you played.
And I said, I think you'll find it is, Darian. But then,
but every time Darian was right.
He was right.
We've had the same differences. He'll tell me the same thing. I say, no, that's not how. He'll say, no, I don't think that's how you did it. And then he proved me wrong every darn time.
Yeah. What do you think, Brian? Am I okay in your band?
You're fine. You're good.
There you go.
Good. Well, that's great to anybody else. So there.
We're doing songs off of the Friends album, same year as the Odyssey and Oracle album. We thought that would be nice. But then also some songs off of the Surf's Up album.
Which ones are you doing?
From Surf's Up?
Yeah.
We're doing, Blondie's singing 2 of Carl's songs, which is great.
Long Promised Road and Field Flows.
Yeah. And then the title track, Surf's Up. And
Brian's doing Surf's Up. We're doing that.
And
I'm looking forward to this. This is the first thing. We've got a lot of hanging to do, fellas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Al's got a few tricks up his sleeve as well.
What's that?
I don't know. What was the last thing we ran?
Yeah. That's what I'm nervous about.
Yes.
That sounded good, Al.
It did. It sounded fine.
I like the organ break. I love that big B3 organ. We don't hear that too often in our music. It's
true.
It's just that balls out B3 Leslie sound.
Yeah.
And that picks me up right there. So I'm
cool.
waiting for that all during the song.
Yeah, the other keyboardist in the band, Gary, is playing the organ solo, and at one point we were kind of struggling with it, and I just said, you better get into shape because Rod Argent's going to be on stage. And he did. He kicked into a new mode. It was great. He was inspired with a little bit of. So
Well, I hope everybody comes down and gets a piece of this because we're going to have a good time. So that's what I'm looking forward to do. You know.
Brian, what's your favorite stuff off the new songs we're doing?
I like Friends and Wake the World.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not so conversant with the Friends album, actually. I'm really looking forward to hearing the stuff from that.
Yeah.
Friends is like a home movie that gets better and better as you listen to it. It's a little rough around the edges, but perfect from within.
Yeah,
that kind of
I
thing.
bet.
It's just because we didn't have all the professional gear that most studios have. We did it in his living room.
Oh, did you? Okay.
With our sound system equipment. We take our sound gear on the road, bring it home, break it down, and that would be our studio speakers, and we'd record in Brian's living room.
But that can have a real feeling of its own.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about the album.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very intimate and very easy breezy. The Surf's Up album, which came, 71? That I know has gone down in history as being like the first sort of hip album. It really appealed to the FM radio movement that was happening at the time. So it was kind of a dark album, kind of addressing a lot of ecological, political issues of the time. And so that's always been, it's had a reputation, but now it's come around where, especially like a younger generation, they're discovering the really lost Beach Boys albums of the late 60s, and which Friends is one of them, And
but that was always a tradition of the early Beach Boys, wasn't it? The fact that you guys recorded stuff with your own ideas and not in the traditional way that was the production of a record. And that Brian so much had these, fantastic original ideas, and you weren't just trying to tread the path that everyone else had trodden. So that's a real tradition, isn't it?
Yeah, always moving forward.
Always going forward, always moving. No looking back. We're looking at tomorrow.
That's the song.
Yeah. Is that a song?
Yeah, that's that song we were talking about.
Brian, what did you enjoy most? Did you enjoy most working in the studio or at your home?
Studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't there any convenience that you enjoyed at home?
No.
No?
No.
Do it again.
He digs the studio.
Yeah, he does dig the studio.
Yeah, he definitely does.
He likes hearing a whole bunch of musicians playing together.
I like the Zombies.
Great. Thank you.
I remember seeing the stuff where Brian was directing the Wrecking Crew. There's quite a famous thing, isn't there? And it's so inspiring because, Brian, you had you had the direction so down. It was fantastic when you would just say, no, I want to hear it like this. Can we just have a bit of organ here? No, I hear that. No drums like that. I just want to hear a bit of percussion here.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's great.
And, do you know, that was so inspiring to us because we did Odyssey and Oracle. Well, was it about a year after Pet Sounds came out? And that feeling of structure that was on Pet Sounds, I mean, I can honestly say we didn't copy anything from the album, but the feeling of expanding the structure of music at that time was something that was very inspiring to us. And it was certainly with the songs that I wrote on the album. And the thing that you always seemed to be part of your music, Brian, things that I'd really felt allied to were the melodic bass parts that you always used in your music. And when I first wrote She's Not There, the bass riff was the first thing that I wrote on that. And I was always thinking about melodic bass lines, and I was always thinking about different drum patterns as well, different to the way Brian saw things. But now, Brian always had that, but I thought with Pet Sounds, you took it to another level, and it certainly made me want to develop some songs like Carousel 44. I mean, some of the bass lines from things like on Pet Sounds, what's it called? Here Today.
Here Today, yeah.
Yeah, and those lovely, almost orchestral, contrapuntal lines that you had. That, you know, honestly, it was such an inspiring thing. And in an indirect way, I think, and that feeling that it was possible to expand the palette of what we were able to do. And it always felt to me, and I might be wrong about this, but at that time, so many of the people in charge of the recording industry and record companies didn't really understand what was going on. So they would leave it up to us in a way that I don't think many bands can do now. And so you could use the experimental directions that you were feeling, and they would accept it because they said, well, do it. And, you know, because we don't really understand what's going on here. And that felt very freeing. And it was like a time when all the boundaries were able to be explored and advanced. But certainly, you know, well, I mean, I know that Pet Sounds had a huge impact on the Beatles. And it certainly, in our own small way, it did on us, our music too. So thanks for that.
Okay.
Wow. How about that, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what zombie songs do you like?
I like them all.
Good answer. Time of the season?
Time of the season, yeah. I like it.
Oh, that's a beauty. Great. That is a beauty. Did you write
Oh,
that?
love
I wrote that,
it.
yeah. To the major chord.
Yeah.
Let's go get him.
Yeah, that's really remarkable.
I remember we did a benefit for Paul Atkinson, who was the guitarist in our band, and I know he worked with the Beach Boys albums, and you did a benefit, and we were there as well. And I always remember you asked him what song he would like you to play, and he said, "Don't Worry, Baby." And you said, you know, we don't normally do that, but for you, this is your night, we'll do it.
Okay.
And it was so special.
That was moving.
It was really special. Absolutely beautiful.
Where was this?
It was in LA. What was the
Is it
place?
the House of Blues?
House of Blues.
House of Blues.
House
yeah.
of Blues,
No
yeah.
longer exists.
Yeah. It was a wonderful evening.
We'd met you by then, hadn't we, Darian?
Yes.
We have met you
Yes.
by then.
Yeah.
Okay.
The funny thing is I had met Paul many times
Had you?
because of
Working with-
things like, you know, presenting the Beach Boys with some kind of honor or some kind of record sales. But I didn't know it was Paul Atkinson. I'd always heard it was, Paul, because Melinda and Brian would say, Paul this, Paul that, you know. And he'd always show up, this distinguished, you know, British gentleman, and I'd hear his accent, and then later I saw his name printed on something. Paul Atkinson? That's the Paul? Is that the Paul? And I remember approaching him and asking him, and I said, are you Paul Atkinson from the Zombies? And he did this sort of like, you caught me, you know. But for him, he'd done it was almost as if he was referring to like something he did long, long ago? Because he'd done so much since, right?
As a record executive, he was very, very successful. But, that night in LA when we played with Brian, his family had never seen Paul Atkinson on stage.
Oh.
So that night he got up, and he was very ill.
I remember
but he got up and played with us, and he was so excited because that was the only night that his family saw him up on stage playing with the band. Yeah.
He said, I really want to do it because he said they don't believe that I actually have ever played. and he had a catheter in his arm, and he had morphine going into his arm so that he could play just on that little set that we did together. Yeah, and it was. Oh,
it's a
man,
very emotional night.
It was for
very
us.
emotional.
Yeah.
Very emotional. Yeah, I just remember that. Wow.
Well, I'm sure we're going to love this show tonight. It's going to be great.
Absolutely.
You know what? It's going to be great.
Yeah.
I tell you what, if I wasn't involved in the show, I would buy a ticket.
It's not too late, Colin.
Oh man! Hey, Blondie, you know what just dawned on me? You played these songs in 1971 with us when you joined the band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at least the Surf's Up stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're doing Surf's Up tonight too.
Yeah.
And in Chicago.
Yeah.
And all the whole tour, right? So you were there and you played Long Promise on bass.
I used to play a bass on Surf's Up live.
Was it Surf's Up?
Yeah.
You did? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Long Promise.
Wow.
Right?
For years, a couple of years.
Did we do Feel Flows then? I don't know if we did or not.
I think Carl did.
Oh, and Promised.
Yeah.
So now you're singing lead.
All right, there you go. Come full circle.
It took a little while, but
Come full circle.
Do you know we did play together once, Al.
Oh, yeah?
It was in Nashville.
It was in Nashville, and you invited us to a party after the show. We were playing together, and this might have been a different night, but we went. There was a barbecue, and it's the first time I'd ever heard bar, right?
First time?
The very first time, yeah.
Oh,
and you were doing it at the
funny.
barbecue, and and I thought it was really cool. Yeah.
You mean back then?
In the 60s.
Wait, when was this again?
Was it 65? Would that work out?
It should be around that time.
Yeah.
But I don't think Brian wasn't there.
Yeah, I think Brian
wasn't there.
First time, okay.
I remember.
I was going to say, didn't they play it in England?
Oh, well, yeah, it was a big hit in England.
But I was
it was
thinking this
huge
was way
hit.
later than 65 we were talking about, but you're talking about 60. Yeah, it's about right.
When did it come out in 65?
I guess 65, yeah, right,
When
Brian?
was that, Brian?
I don't know.
Barbara Ann.
1965.
The live album.
Oh, there you are.
Live album. Right?
Party out.
We did it at Western
It was
Recorder
Always
Studio.
knows the number.
Party up. So we met then. Huh?
When we met then, we played at and in fact, you invited us to the beach after the tour.
In
and
Nashville?
we could no. I mean, you said when we go back to the West Coast, come and see us on the beach.
The beach.
Yeah.
But we weren't. The calendar didn't admit
quite work
that.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's when you quit the road, right?
Right, 1964.
64.
Yeah, I wrote Pet Sounds shortly after I got off tour.
Okay.
So
that was a
who
good use.
replaced you on the road?
Glenn Campbell.
Wow. So Glenn Campbell was there.
Yes.
Can I tell you I'm sorry, Cole.
No, go on.
I was going to say, can I tell you a little family anecdote about Barbara Ann? When my little boy was about 3 years old, or he may have been younger than that, actually. Yeah, he was younger than that, because I was pushing him in the pram.
That's baby stroller.
Stroller.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a stroller. Yeah, it's like a pram. And he was really, really little. And I was walking along with my wife, and I started singing bar, 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 bar. And my son, Mark, went, no.
Are you serious?
And I thought, what's going on? What's wrong with him? And this happened 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And then I realised that when I'd started singing that as just a thing that I used to do with Kathy, she would try and sing the harmony and get it wrong, and I'd say no, and he picked up on that.
Oh, so you thought that was part
and he
of
was
the...
going, no.
Really?
And we didn't realise for a little while that was the case.
Is he a musician?
He isn't. He played the drums for a while, but he didn't keep it up, I'm afraid.
Well, he's got a good ear then.
Yeah.
But you had something you were
kidding.
going to say, right, about...
Just now?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm absolutely sure that when we played together in Nashville, Brian wasn't there.
Yeah.
I just remember it. But I didn't know that Glenn Campbell took his place. But I remember the show. I watched from the side. And I remember the show really, really well.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
But someone told me that Glenn Campbell was in the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
Was that right?
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Okay.
He started there, though, right, Brian? He was first a musician, and then he
went with the Beach Boys.
Oh,
and then he had a solo career.
Right.
After that.
Wow.
You wrote a great song for him.
Yeah, Guess I'm Dumb.
Guess I'm Dumb. Have you guys ever heard that?
No.
A song called Guess I'm that he wrote and produced for
how lovely.
back then. It's fantastic.
1964. Yeah.
You and your dates.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, my God.
64 was a good year. Good year. Yeah, Don't Worry Baby is 64.
Yeah, and what?
Did a lot 64.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah. 64.
Well, that should do it.
Okay. Well, everybody, enjoy the show. We're coming your way. Coming your way. All right.
Thanks so much to everybody who participated in this conversation today. Brian Wilson, of course, along with Rod, Colin, Al, Blondie, Darian. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. There's a lot of voices in there, a lot of experience on this podcast.
Josh, as I was editing this conversation, it occurred to me, and I don't mean to sound too poetic, just how many millions of broken hearts these guys have helped to heal through their songs.
That was too poetic, you're right.
They bring it out of me, Josh. They just bring it out of me. Listeners, if this next clip sounds like a little bit of a chaotic situation, guess what? It was. We were backstage at Pitchfork 2016 and had just hung out with Brian Wilson in Barcelona backstage. I got to interview him there for another project. And Brian said to us at Pitchfork, "I'm down to answer a question. What do you got?" I quickly hit up Carly Rae Jepsen and said, "Do you want to do a one-question wonder with us?" Here's what happened.
Hi, this is Carly Rae Jepsen with the Talkhouse. I'm about to meet Brian Wilson, shaking my boots.
Here we go, let's do it. One question, go.
Brian, this is Carly. It's such an honor to meet you.
Hi.
I was going to ask you the question. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. So my question for you, obviously you're a songwriter of all songwriters. How did it start for you? What was the first time you realized that you had a gift of songwriting? And
When I was 19, I wrote Surfer Girl. That's when I first knew I had a gift.
Really?
Yeah.
On just acoustic guitar?
Yeah, no, on piano. On
piano?
Yeah.
Okay. What was it sparked from? Where did the inspiration come
Came from the Four Freshmen.
Okay, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Josh, I think we're going to have to give Carly her own Talkhouse podcast. What do you think?
Sign her up.
She's amazing.
She's awesome.
I'll tell you what else was awesome. A conversation that we hosted at the Samsung store when it first opened here in Manhattan in 2016 between the Zombies and their friends in the band, Hollis Brown. You can check out that full talk in the Talkhouse archives, but we've chosen a clip for you today that really takes in some amazing stories. From the Zombies' earliest days to their reunion, we hear about their early image problems, having a hit at the wrong time, realizing they were rock stars in the Philippines, and so much more.
Let's do it.
Going back to the 60s, I'm talking about 1964 to 1967, we had the most appalling image, especially in the UK. And it's basically...
Well, we had a manager who didn't like rock and roll, which wasn't a good start,
It's not a
was
good
it?
start, no. I mean, but basically we were 18 years old when we very first started.
Straight out of school?
We were straight out of school and we didn't understand anything about the business. And it was totally out of our control. And I think... I always say you should accept, of course, most graciously, any success that you get at any time in your life. But out of choice, it might have been interesting if our first hit record had come a couple of years later when we understood the business a little bit better and we could have been more in control. Because there just seemed to be so many things against us. And we were presented very much as sort of academic schoolboys at a time.
Crazy.
You know, people want bands to be dangerous and
but
on the edge.
We weren't even particularly academic. I mean, they were just saying, well, what can we hang this story on? And that followed us around all our career. And at the same time, you got Jagger, who was at the LSE, you know, which was a top university.
Yeah.
You got Paul Jones from Manfred, who was at Oxford. I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
I know. It was so false. And that's one of the problems. If you try to create an image that is contrived and not natural. And I mean, it really backfired on us because it wasn't our idea.
Yeah. That's the great thing about the Beatles. They were just totally natural.
Absolutely.
And people who are younger don't often understand what an enormous departure that was. Because up to that time, the whole showbiz concept was that you said certain things, you never mentioned other things. Lennon and McCartney, and well, all of them, when they were asked a question, they would answer an honest answer.
Right.
You know, they would just say exactly what they thought. They got them into trouble sometimes, but people...
Well, they're from a tough city, Liverpool, right?
Yeah,
you know?
but they were just being themselves.
Yeah.
You know? And that is the answer, I think.
Let me ask you, when you guys reunited about 15 years ago, were you aware that particularly two of your songs, I know for me, Time of the Season and She's Not There, had become basically standard repertoire on every rock station in America, classic rock station?
Well, I did know that because the thing is, it was that really that provided, you know, I was just very lucky having written the songs. Personally, it provided me with a cushion of finance which enabled me to follow what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I was very aware of that. You know,
but I think to a degree though, Rod, there was a surprise for us because when we first started, for the first 6 or 7 years, we toured as Colin Blunstone and Rod Argent, not the Zombies at all.
Because we didn't want to sort of artificially rake over the coals.
No, we
know?
didn't. And also, we didn't feel that there was that much interest in the Zombies. It wasn't till we got out on the road that we realised that internationally, it's not just in the UK and not just in America, there's a huge interest in the Zombies. And it took us by... It's a very pleasant surprise, but it really took us by surprise. And in the end, we were being asked to do more and more zombie tunes that we'd forgotten. We had to... It's an embarrassing situation. We had to relearn zombie tunes. They're 50 years old.
Yeah, well, some of them we never played live, Colin.
No, we probably just played them in the studio and then forgot.
Yeah, we got a couple of
But you tour in Asia, in Japan, right?
Do you?
No, you guys
Yeah, we
do.
do. Japan,
No, we have yet to
and
go there.
the Philippines as well. In fact, the Philippines is probably the country we were biggest in.
Really?
It would be the other side of the world to where we live.
Of course.
The first time we went to the Philippines in 67, and we had no idea about the Philippines at all. And in my mind's eye, I thought we were going to go to an island resort.
Well, this is how the manager described it to me.
We had this red-hot manager. He was terrible.
He said, "You won't lose money, guys.
You won't lose money." So I thought we were going to go to some kind of resort, and we would be playing in a hotel bar in the evenings, and hopefully we'd do some sunbathing during the day. So I thought, well, it would be a little holiday. And when we arrived at Manila Airport, it was the middle of the night, and there were thousands of people there. And we did that sort of thing when you get off a plane and you look back to see...
Who's on the plane?
Who's on the plane that these people have come to see. And then you suddenly realise, it's us. They've come to see us, and there were all film crews there. And we opened to 28,000 people at the Araneta Coliseum.
In a 10-night residency.
In a 10-night residency. And the next night was 32,000 people. And we were being paid £80 a night for the band.
Oh, man.
£80, so like $140 between us to play to 28,000 people.
When was it? What year?
67.
60s?
Is my inflation off? Is that like...
It's not good. It's not good business.
You have to realise that $140 in those days is worth at least $1,000 a night now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But still.
If you want
making the big
business
bucks.
advice, if you want
To
business
28,000
advice,
people,
don't come to us.
Yeah.
We're not the best people to advise on business.
We found out that the guy, the promoter there, God knows what our manager was making. Promoter there out of that week made £26,000 profit, which is what, $50,000?
Yeah, and that's a long time ago.
In 1967.
Right. Yeah. You hear a lot of those stories, though.
I mean, especially
What's
in
that,
the 60s.
$500,000 now or something? You know?
In the 60s, bands were... It wasn't just us. All bands were ripped off. And it just seemed to be the normal thing.
Well, that's why a lot of the bigger bands just starting their own management companies and doing their own thing.
Yeah. I think possibly if we'd kept going, we would have done something like that.
Yeah.
I'm the only one. I think all the rest of the guys are quite happy that we finished, and it seemed a natural time to finish the band in '67. But I'm the one that's intrigued what might have happened next, especially because Rod and Chris White, the other major writer in the band, they were just going into a very, very hot streak of writing wonderful songs. And I'm always intrigued what we might have done. It doesn't matter.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So you guys broke up the first time in '67.
Yeah.
And Time of the Season became a big hit in
'69. Yeah.
So 2 years later. How did that happen?
Well, it's crazy in those days because I'm fond of saying the world was a much bigger place in those days. Nowadays, if you get a cover, like Aaron or whatever, and say Aaron put that out in Australia and it was a hit, within a day you'd know. It would be on social media,
right.
Or you'd have someone talking to you. In those days, we just didn't know. And years after we split up, we found, for instance, that we usually had a hit somewhere in the world, but we just didn't know at that time. So what it meant was that because we were so based in the UK, we had fewer hits in the UK than anywhere else, that the income that all the band were getting that weren't the writers was just going down and down. And it meant in the end that I remember that the first sort of nail in the coffin was our guitar player saying, "Look, guys, I'm about to get married. I've got no money. I've got to move on." And that started the disintegration, really. It was only Chris and I that had the money. So you didn't know a lot of things were happening. And we knew that Al Cooper, who was the really hot new producer, after the Super Sessions and Blood, Sweat and Tears and everything, for Clive Davis, he'd been hired by Clive Davis. He came over to the UK, picked up 200 albums and went back to Clive and said, there is one album that, he said, I don't care who's got this, we have to pay whatever it costs to get it. And he said, well, we've got it and we've passed on it, he said, well, you've got to release it. But then the first song they released was actually one of my favourite songs on the album, which was a Chris White song called Butcher's Tale, but it's never a single in a million years.
Yeah.
And so that stiffed.
Yeah.
And then we'd broken up by this time because we thought nothing was happening. The second song was one that everyone thought was commercial, which was Care of Cell 44, but it didn't happen.
That's a great song.
Thank you.
Great song.
And then the third one, they put out Time of the Season. Again, that didn't happen. But there was one very small DJ in a little town in Idaho called Boise who started playing it. And in those days, as you guys know very well, the whole record industry was very, very different.
Yeah.
And things could take their time to break out. And this guy started playing this song, and it started getting instant reaction, but in a tiny pool. Someone threw a pebble in a tiny pool, and the ripples gradually started to radiate outwards. And then one or two other people started playing it. And the whole process took 6 months before it started climbing the Billboard charts. And, in the end, it made #1. But we didn't know until
I can't believe
about
that you
the
didn't
last
know.
month. No,
Oh
we
my
did not
goodness.
know until about the last month.
But also the funny thing is that, the band split in '67, and I think by the time Al Cooper had taken the album to CBS, by the time they'd released it, by the time 3 singles had come off it, Time of the Season, I think, was a hit in '69, wasn't it?
69.
Yeah.
And by that
2 years
time,
later, by that time, Rod had started Argent, and I was just starting a new solo career, and it was very difficult for us to get back together again, but it's very frustrating to see yourself at #1 in the charts.
See, I loved that. I didn't find it frustrating at all because it felt like it was just a complete bonus. We were both starting, Chris and I were doing a production deal to do your new album and to do Argent, and it made it very easy. We were over there.
Yeah.
How come you guys didn't decide to just do another Zombies record at that time?
Because we'd moved on to different paths. And, what I said about not wanting to rake over coals, we've always naturally looked ahead, always.
Did you perform, like when you were doing Argent, you were doing your solo career, did you guys perform those songs on your own sets?
We did Time the Season. Actually, that's where Hold Your Head Up came from.
Yeah.
Because...
the bass line, right?
Well, we were playing a version of Time the Season one night, and Chris White, the original bass player, was... He and I wanted to definitely stay in the business. We didn't want to give up at all. Mm-hmm. But Chris said, I don't want to play anymore. He said, but I'd love to be a silent member of Argent, like co-producer, co-writer. And he was at one of our early gigs, and we were playing a very, very long set. And so we went into Time of the Season, and we started improvising. And we went into a riff we'd never played before. And Chris heard that riff, and loved it and wrote a song around it. And that was Hold Your Head Up.
Oh, wow.
So it came right out of Time of the Season.
Now, did you always collaborate together throughout the years? Or
what, Colin and me?
Yeah.
We have done as not as writers, but usually it would be Rod producing me. Rod's produced 3 or 4 of my albums. And also, we every now and again we do a charity gig together, or something would come.
Remained in touch.
So we were always working all the way through the years. But I mean, there was a huge gap. Argent came off the road in '74, and my first solo band came off the road about then as well. And we didn't get back together again until as a touring band until the end of the '90s. So it's nearly a quarter of a century's gap.
Was there anything that sparked it? Was there any one thing you can say just?
Well, it's funny enough, we both remember this in a different way. But do you want to?
Well, I mean, we might remember it in a different way. But Colin had started eventually to go back on the road with a solo band after many years of not wanting to do it. And around about 2 years after he'd done that, there was a jazz musician called John Dankworth who was married to Cleo Lane, and John's dead now, but he was a very good friend. And he had a theatre, and he asked me to do a charity show to raise money for the theatre. And I said, well, I hadn't done any live stuff. I'd all been in music all my life, but I hadn't done any live stuff for a long time. And he said, oh, come on. He said, do it in the all-music concept, because this theatre was all music. So he was a great jazz musician, a real pioneer. But he loved all sorts of music, classical music. He liked good rock and roll. And, so he had very open ears. So I thought, yeah, I'll do something in that spirit. And I put an evening together where I actually got Argent back together for 40 minutes, but I did a jazz set, and I did I played a Bach concerto with a string quartet as well. So I tried to include it all. Colin was in the audience, and he got up and sang "She's Not There in Time of the Season," and I tell you what, it felt so nice and so natural, and it really felt like we'd only been playing a couple of weeks before. And soon after that, Colin phoned me up and said, I'm going to do a few more gigs. Why don't you do them with me? And I said, I don't know if I want to get into all that, Yeah. And that's how slowly it started. And really, certainly from my point of view, I really did not want to do anything to do with the Zombies, because I thought that's looking back, just trying to rake over the coals. That's the reason I didn't want to do any Zombies things to start with. And it was only when it started feeling natural, because we suddenly realised, as Colin said, there was a lot of stuff that we hadn't played live ever, and it became a rediscovery for us as well.
Yeah.
And it started becoming interesting then. So we'd do something like "I Want You Back Again," which we'd done recently, that we'd never ever played, and that felt like doing something new. And it wasn't just saying cynically, "Oh, let's give people what they want, and we might be able to make a buck." It was never that, and that's not what it is now.
Yeah.
Because as I've said before, I believe you have to do things for the right reason. Really.
Well, you guys are doing new records, and you're not just relying on the old material,
Absolutely.
which is good.
Great stuff there. And if you want to hear that full conversation, head on over to talkhouse.com/podcast, where you can catch that and every episode we've released. We're over 250 shows in now.
God damn.
That last clip was recorded by the in-house Samsung staff. Carly and Brian in Conversation was recorded by our co-producer Mark Yoshizumi, and Malcolm Harrison of National Southwestern in Las Vegas recorded today's centerpiece Conversation. Big love to our co-producer, Mark Yoshizumi.
Double love to Mark Yoshizumi. We have some fun pictures from behind the scenes on our social channels. Check out Talkhouse at the usual spots: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
And make sure you catch the Zombies and Brian Wilson touring together. This could be a once-in-a-lifetime. Well, I suppose they played together once in the 60s. This could be the once-in-your-lifetime, if you're my age or younger, show. And I'll certainly be there at the New York date. You can find all of the tour dates at talkhouse.com. The Talkhouse Podcast theme song was composed and performed by The Range, who I hear has some new music coming down the pipeline.
Yes, I'm psyched for that.
Until next week, I'm Ellie Einhorn.
And I'm Josh Modell.
Peace. And Beach Zombies.
Peace.
It's the time of the season for Beach Boys.
Oh, man.
Major chord.
I was trying to do it up for you.